One of the first things I noticed when I updated to this new version of Bootstrap is that my modals weren't working. So if I click on one of these, I should be seeing the picture come up right here. It wasn't working and it was a little bit tough to figure out why. So my first impression was that this may have something to do with the JavaScript. So as usual, I right clicked and went to inspect element and I noticed that there are no console errors here. So there's nothing on the console. There is no JavaScript errors. So that couldn't really be the problem. So next I thought there might be something wrong with how I structured the HTML for the modals. So I went into the documentation for Bootstrap, and here's Bootstrap 2.3. You'll see how you make a modal right here on this code. Now if I go to Bootstrap 3, you'll see a similar piece of code, but there's one very important difference. I don't know if you could see what it is, but look at 2 and look at 3. And let's go back to 2 and I'll show you where it is. It's right here. In Bootstrap 2.3, you used to add an additional class to your modal to make sure that it hides whenever the page loads. You don't have to do that with the new version of Bootstrap. There's nothing that really says that in here that you're not supposed to put that class, but it's just the way that it works. So that was a super difficult problem to find. So now that I know that, all I have to do is go into my code and find the section that has the modal code, and that is in this header.php section. So I'm going to open that up. It's in components, PHP, and it's called header.php. And if you look at my code for the modal right here, you'll see that it has that additional hide class, which I don't need for the new version of Bootstrap. One thing I do have to mention is that you may notice that we're missing a lot of the code that normally would go in a modal. That's because my modal is driven by JavaScript. Really, all I have to do is hide this thing right here. So let's just delete that, save it, and go back into my website. And I'm going to refresh and show you. And if you click on this, you can see the big version of the picture. Everything works as expected. You also may have noticed that I have very little code here. Notice that I just have the div for the modal right here, plus a class of modal body and a div for that. And then I put an image in there. If you look at the full code for the modal, you'll see that there's additional divs right here. There's modal dialog and modal content. All I really need for mine was the modal body. If you don't put these two divs, then you're not going to get that little white border that it would normally give you. And the image come out a lot bigger, which is something that I really liked. So this is not the only place that this happens. What you may want to do when updating your sites is look for other places in your code where you're using the hide class.